Hi, I'm Jill Chivers from shopyourwardrobe.com.
And I'm Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style.
And today we wanted to talk about how style spills out of the area of clothing into other areas of our life, and whether we feel we have style elsewhere and what other factors come into play outside of just our clothing. And we want to hear what you think about this as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned to me that you've got a couple of words that you use that relate to your style all over.
Yeah, kind of universal style words. And these came about in discussion with my stepdaughter who was renovating her house and trying to come up with sort of a formula, a touchstone for every choice they were making with their house. And it was sort of an industrial, beachy kind of thing that she was going for, which now the renovation is completed, I can say was successful. And I came up with the words safari meets plantation, and that kind of summed up the animal print with the bright clear colours that I wear, the zesty colours that I wear. And that's really kind of a helpful thing for me. I use it a little bit as a touchstone, but I've used that also in my house. If you could see my house, you can see some of my house. It has lots of elements of that safari meets plantation. Not everywhere, I haven't been always able to fully manifest that. Sometimes there have been practical considerations, a couch that we had to keep or whatever it was. But I like those two words. They're evocative and meaningful for me, and they're a good way to test if something's working or not working, which is good if you're in a shopping environment having to choose, or you're in a renovating environment and having to choose what stays and goes.
Yes. So do you think that that your personal style, which, you have the animal print as your signature print, we're in Jill's house now, and definitely there's animal prints, but not, it's not wall to ceiling.
What she's saying is it's very tastefully done.
Tastefully done animal print. But, have you always decorated in a way that relates so much to what you wear? No, I haven't. That has evolved, I would say, late 30s. I'm 45 now, so that's been a relatively new thing. I didn't know for many years what my style was in clothing or anywhere else, and when I look back at various houses, my husband and I have had 8 houses together since we've been married. I see elements of it, pieces of it, but I was never really bold enough to claim it until this house, really, where I abandoned all thoughts of forgiveness or permission from other people and thought, how would I like to do this? I want to use that African mud cloth. I want one guest bedroom to be zebra and the other one to be giraffe, and those kinds of things where I really just used myself as the barometer, whereas before I either didn't have enough confidence or I was lacking in other resources. So yeah, sometimes practicality, that's the driving force, and that's true for many people in their lives. It's certainly been true for me at various odd points where you just have to go with something because it's there. I certainly know in our house, we have, elements of things like, couches and stuff. It's actually all about practicality and children and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I do know that some of the pieces that I really like the most, and the pieces that I brought in recent times, or that we're looking for, to improve the place, all actually relate back to my personal style.
Right. And
my personal style, I kind of work with the words functional individualist.
Yes.
So, but functionality is really important to me.
Yes.
So I look for pieces for my house that are what I call functional art. So they've got to be practical, they've got to be functional, but then they also have to be aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yes.
And I had a glass artist make a clock for me. I needed a clock, but I wanted it to be not just a typical old clock face. Recently I've been looking for some new light fittings, and I wanted these light fittings to create artwork. So they're by a New Zealand artist called David Trubridge, and they create patterns on the walls and ceiling when you turn them on. They're made of wood, and they're textural and sculptural in many ways. So it's not just a boring light fitting, or what do they call a
downlight.
A downlight.
She's pointing at mine,
Well,
by the way.
A downlights are great when you want to function, just task gliding.
Yes.
But they don't create atmosphere.
No.
And so I suppose that absolutely. I think it's interesting when you think about your home and your environment you live in. And one of the things I found really interesting with clients over the years is I'll often ask them if they have a favourite item in their house that they really love, particularly if they don't love their wardrobe.
Right.
And I remember one of my clients brought me a glass, and I said, so it was just a drinking glass. And I said, describe this to me. And she said, it's sleek, it's solid, It's refined. It's elegant.
What a great question. Rather than assuming things about that glass and her relationship and to its meaning to you, you asked an open question that gave you all of this rich information that was personally extremely meaningful to her.
And so, I mean, that meant when we were looking at her clothes, we didn't want fussy.
Yes.
We wanted things that were sleeker, more simple, more elegant, but still had a solidity to them.
Yes.
And so it was much easier when we're going through our wardrobe to actually relate those elements.
Yeah, so it became like a token, an icon, a simple thing she could remember. You know, she's out and about shopping, or she's in another environment, an acquiring environment. She can remember that, bring that to mind, and test everything against that. What a gift.
And another of my clients, and she brought me, it was a kind of a geisha, so Japanese geisha sculpture.
Right.
And so very oriental. And it was one of those things that, and it was interesting that her favourite garment in her wardrobe had an oriental feel.
Really? Yeah.
And so it had a bit of pattern. So it was like, well, okay, so these are the things, you know, when we talked about it, it was like, okay, no, there was an exoticness. It was an exotic oriental. And so there suddenly we go, so all those things that don't say that weren't making her happy. It was very easy to go, these are the things we keep, and this is what we let go, and this is what we're looking for.
Yes.
And I think it's really important often that your environment, particularly if you're not sure about your style, if you're not sure of what you really love, actually look around at the things in your house that you love. And then start, you know, seeing if you could describe them, like, to, you know, because what it is to you, not anybody else.
And I can look around my house and identify the things I don't like or I wouldn't choose again, and they fall outside of that plantation, safari meets plantation thing. But another really important consideration is who you share your home with.
Yes.
And that's a really important thing from both a practical perspective. We were talking about children before, but partners as well, and factoring them in so that if you have a shared space, whether or not it's a house that one party has moved into or you've started together, it's really important it feels like a home that both of you live in, a home that both of you have contributed in, and it's not just dominated by one person's style. And I think, to me, that's a really important factor, that my husband feels this is our house. It doesn't just represent my style because I was the dominant force when we did it. That's important to me and important to our relationship.
Yeah. So it's important, especially in a house, but it's often that thing that if you're trying to work the other way, if you're trying to work backwards, if you're not really sure of your clothing style, start having a look around your house and see what it is that you really love. What are the elements you love? What are the things that make you the happiest? What are the things that bring you joy in your environment? And you might actually then discover that those elements translate to your wardrobe.
Yeah, we'd love to know what you experience and what you find and what you think and feel about all of that. So tell us in the comments.
Yeah.